This time of year is a little crazy.
Yeah, I bet it is very, very crazy. Let's see. So how was your day, sir? I know it's probably busy.
Long.
Very long, yes. Yes, same here. Long, busy day. Just let's see.
All
So
right. Well, what do you want to know?
yeah, let me see if I could share the screen with you to make it easier.
Okay.
Yes, let's see, share this one. All right. Okay, are you able to see the screen, sir?
Yep.
Awesome. So let me see. So let's see. This interview is my field experience 3. It's about technology, collaboration, and co-teaching. It should take about 30 minutes. And is that okay with you, sir?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Let's go here. So we're just going to start with some introduction right here as it's required in the interview. So my name is Cornelius Sabaya. I'm a student at GCU, and I will be the interviewer for this meeting. Could you introduce yourself real quick, sir?
My name is Reed Carlson, and I'm a classroom teacher.
Okay, thank you. All right, I just go through the agenda here real quick of what we're going to talk about. So we just did the introductions. So next we talk about similarities and differences among students with and without disabilities, characteristics of various disabilities and their educational implications for students at your school, effects disabilities can have on students' academic and social development, attitudes, interests, and values, factors that affect students with disabilities, addressing the unique learning needs for students with disabilities in the classroom, strategies used when collaborating with and co-teaching with special education teachers, importance of special education teachers, use of various types of technologies to support students with disabilities, legal responsibilities to protect rights and privacy of students with disabilities, collaboration with special education teachers to communicate, create, and store student documentations, and finally, co-teaching strategies. I know it sounds like a lot, but hopefully we can get this rolling.
Okay.
All right. So the first question here is, can you discuss the similarities and differences among students with and without disabilities in your school?
Well, they all can learn. I guess that's the similarity, and they like to have fun. And some of them like to do things they shouldn't. And then differences, some of them learn much easier than others, and they all have different strengths. So.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. So next slide here. Could you describe the characteristics of various disabilities and their educational implications for students at your school?
I would say the most difficult to deal with disabilities that I have are the deaf students. And so in order to communicate with them, I have to communicate through an interpreter, which, it works out and it can be done, but it makes things challenging from time to time.
Okay.
I've got kids with emotional disabilities, and sometimes they need to be handled in a different way than the other students. I've got kids with learning disabilities, and we can make modifications to how we present information as well as how we assess those students' learning.
Okay, thank you. All right. Could you explain the effects disabilities can have on students' academic and social development, attitudes, interests, and values?
Well, I teach at an IB school, and generally our students with disabilities are not going to be the ones who are taking the upper level classes that we offer. And we are trying to open doors in that direction, but it's pretty difficult. Socially, our kids with disabilities, like with our deaf students, they don't get to interact as much with other kids as our special needs kids that aren't deaf. And even then, we still sometimes find some of our kids with special needs they get kind of isolated.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's their own doing, and sometimes it's the kids that are around them.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Next question here. Could you describe how factors such as cultural diversity and human issues affect students with disabilities?
Mm, The school that I teach in is pretty open and accepting, and
Mhm.
the I mean, we don't have a whole lot of things like that,
Mhm.
especially affecting our students with disabilities. Now, I do
Mhm.
have a few students with disabilities who are also English language learners.
Mhm.
And so that adds another layer of difficulty in communicating with them and assessing them and presenting them with information. And it
Mhm.
also affects them socially because they feel more comfortable working with the other Spanish speakers rather than,
Mhm.
getting to know the other kids in the class.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Let's see. Next question here. Could you explain how you address the unique learning needs of students with disabilities in the classroom, including those students with culturally and linguistically diverse background?
So at the beginning of the year, we had a class where we were putting most of our linguistically diverse students in there so that they could get extra help, and we could give them, some different instruction that
Mhm.
focused more on basic skills and language learning. And then we got rid of it, and they
Mhm.
farmed all those kids out to the regular ed classes.
Mhm.
And it did not it was not the right idea. And
Mhm.
so we changed track about a couple months ago and ended up
Mhm.
putting them back into that
Mhm.
class that had language support in it. And as a classroom teacher, it was a lot of work. Um,
Mhm.
and it was, I wouldn't say it was the most successful endeavor that I've ever embarked on. I
Mhm.
was making efforts and the kids were making progress, but they were not making as much progress as they could if they were in a class that was more specially tailored to their needs.
Mhm. Okay. All right. Let's see. Next question here. Could you explain the strategies you use when collaborating and co-teaching with special education teachers? And could we also include discussions of why it is important to view the special education teachers as a co-teacher rather than a behavior enforcer or aid in the classroom?
So I've co-taught a
Mhm.
couple of times before this year, and none of those experiences were positive. This is the first year that I've had where I've had a positive experience with my co-teacher.
Mhm.
And the number one thing that's made this a better year than others is that we have a common planning period where we get to meet every single day
Mhm.
and then, talk about where we're going and actually collaborate.
Mhm.
It's really hard to co-teach with somebody if you don't have time to work together, because
Uh-huh.
if you don't have that time to work together, then they do end up being more of an aid.
Mhm.
So,
Okay. And what makes it difficult to collaborate with them, like with the co-teacher? Is it
well, not having common time would be the biggest thing that makes it hard to collaborate,
okay?
because then you're trying to do things either
Mhm.
outside of the school day or
Okay.
electronically. And it's really helpful to have a time every day where the two of you can sit down and
Uh,
reflect on what you did the day before and plan for the next day.
mhm. Okay, makes sense. Thank you. All right. Next question here. Could you describe how you use various types of technology to support students with disabilities?
Uh, I mean, we use multiple means of representation, so we try to have visual things and auditory things,
Mhm.
options and video and text. So we're not using any special technology other than a projector and a computer. And the kids all have computers this year,
Mhm.
which is something that's new since COVID.
Okay.
But we don't tend to use a whole lot of technology to support
Mhm.
the students with disabilities.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Next one here. Could you describe the legal responsibilities you have to protect the rights and privacy of students with disabilities and include discussions of IDEA, procedural safeguards, FREPA, HIPAA, etc. Include examples of some dilemmas associated with upholding the standards.
Well, most of the confidentiality things really only apply when you're dealing with people outside of your organization.
Mhm.
So when you're co-teaching, that's not really an issue. I mean, everything that I know, my co-teacher can know.
Mhm.
And we have the legal responsibility to be complying with the needs and requests that are set out in a kid's IEP. And we
Mhm.
also have a bunch of kids with 504s. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, it is helpful to have a co-teacher, and that he is kind of the one that we go to, he keeps track of who needs what. And,
Mhm.
he is often the one that is going to modify things because that's his area of expertise.
Mhm. Okay. Let's see. Next question here. Could you discuss how you collaborate with special education teachers to communicate, create, and store student documentations?
So we don't collaborate.
Right.
They basically take care of all of the creation and storage. When you say
Mhm.
student documentation, you're talking about IEPs.
Yes, specifically,
Yeah,
yes.
I don't have anything to do with that. So,
Okay. Communicate, create. Okay, there you
so
go.
they basically take it upon themselves to distribute information about the IEPs to each of the classroom teachers of the kids on their caseload.
Okay.
And so for me, it's my job to then read that and store it somewhere where I can go back to it. But
Mhm.
I'm not storing the actual documents. I'm just
Mhm.
keeping my copies. So,
Okay. Okay. Describe one or two of your favorite co-teaching strategies.
I don't have any real like clearly defined strategies. I mean,
Mhm.
we go with our strengths. And
Mhm.
so my co-teacher is really good at working with kids one-on-one.
Mhm.
So he will do that a lot. Um, it's a science class, and
Mhm.
I am definitely way more confident with the content than he is. So I do most of
Mhm.
the direct instruction. But if
Mhm.
I'm lucky enough to get to work with him again next year, then that is something that could change, and we could have more of a, I mean, there's still a lot of back and forth, and he will jump in and talk about his real life experiences when we're
Mhm.
presenting new material. But if I get to teach with him again, hopefully he can be more of a, so it appears to the kids like it's more of a co-teaching situation, even
Okay.
though we're both, we plan everything together. So
Mhm. Okay, so that was the last question here. And I just have one question about the co-teaching. So how does it work in your school? So do you get assigned to be a co-teacher, or is it something that is already planned?
uh so like at my school, not everyone has a co-teacher.
Okay.
And I've been at let's see, one, two, three different public schools over the last 20 years.
Mhm.
And I had co-teachers at two of them. And it was something where you would kind of get asked,
Mhm.
the previous year, would you like to work with a co-teacher next year? And
Mhm.
some people just kind of get assigned that as well.
Okay.
And yeah, but most like in my department,
Mhm.
there's 11 of us and
Okay.
only 2 of us co-teach.
Mhm.
And so it's, one of us is basically dealing with the 10th grade and the other one's dealing with the 9th grade. And then for the
Mhm.
upper classmen courses, we don't really have any co-teaching going on.
Okay, makes sense. All right, thank you very much for your time. And that was the last question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good luck to you. We need more sped teachers. So
Oh, I got you. Don't worry. I'm working on that.
you'll get hired tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, someone told me the exact same thing.
Yeah, well, there was a thing in the news last week. Hawaii is paying all their special ed teachers 10,000 extra a year just to try to get people to do it.
Oh, interesting.
I wouldn't go to Hawaii though. Like
Mhm.
10,000 extra is not going to go a whole lot in Hawaii. It's so
Um,
expensive to live there. So
yeah, I heard that because of the shortages of special ed teachers, now they're just putting students with the general education teachers for most part.
yeah, and it's hard work. And so like in my department, I'm a science teacher. 2 of
Yes.
my colleagues in my science department are people that used to be special ed teachers and just kind of got
Uh,
burned out. So,
okay. Oh,
but
well.
my uncle was a special ed teacher until he turned
Mhm.
74. So
Wow. That's a really long time. Well,
yeah, I don't want to be working that long. So
well, thank you so much for your time, sir. Thank you
you're
very much.
welcome. Do you need anybody else or are you good?
No, so this was my last one. I just finished with my special ed teacher as well. So I just need a general education teacher. So this was the
Okay.
last one. And thank you so much, sir. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Have a good night.
You as well. Bye bye.
Bye bye.